Ladies and gentlemen, comrades and contrarians, fellow suspects and future deportees, allow me to begin with a proposition so modest, so elementary, so utterly devoid of rhetorical flourish, that one could only suspect it of treason, that a government ought to obey its own laws. Now, in this most recent farce, the ludicrous and lawless deportation of one Kilmar Abrego Garcia, we see precisely what happens when that modest proposition is discarded, like yesterday's press release. A man not yet convicted of any crime, protected under the United States' own judicial system, indeed by a Trump-era judge no less, is spirited away to a Central American dungeon on the basis of what? A hoodie, a hat, a whisper from a confidential informant, the modern-day equivalent of hearsay from the village idiot. And all this, after the government itself had agreed he would face mortal danger if deported. This wasn't a policy error, ladies and gentlemen. It was a test of how stupid they think you are. Let us not mince words. When Attorney General Bondi, a woman who talks as if she's reading legal precedent off a napkin from a Florida bar, stands at a podium and insists this man is a human trafficker, she does so knowing full well that no court has convicted him of so much as jaywalking. The charges were sealed, the indictment hidden away like a pawn stash in the sock drawer of state power, and when they were revealed, oh, how convenient, they arrived just in time to justify the unjustifiable. You see, what's happening here is not justice. It's kabuki theater for the authoritarian mind. It's the great wet dream of every petty tyrant since Caligula, to be both the accuser and the judge, to hold the gavel in one hand and the taser in the other. Now I can hear, even now, the raspy cough of the reactionary mind in the back row muttering, "But Hitchens, what if he is a gang member?" To which I reply, what if you are? Shall we put you on a plane to Tegucigalpa because you once wore a bandana in a yearbook photo? No. In this country, or at least in what used to be this country, we don't punish people for what they might be. We try them, in courts, with lawyers, and evidence. Not press releases from the Department of Homeland Security written with all the subtlety of a Jack Reacher novel. And then there's President Bukele, a man who fancies himself a modern Caesar, but governs more like a tech-savvy Pinochet. That he could smirk his way through a joint press conference calling the rule of law absurd is not only an insult to El Salvadorans who remember real tyranny, but an embarrassment to the United States for letting such juvenile swagger go unchallenged. It is not diplomacy, ladies and gentlemen. It is cosplay, conducted by men whose suits are more tailored than their thoughts. As for President Trump, well, the man could be wrong about the color of an orange. Here is a man who once insisted he'd never heard of a man before insisting that same man was public enemy number one. A man who believes legal nuance is something you add with ketchup. Let me remind you of what Orwell once wrote. Political language is designed to make lies sound truthful and murder respectable. And I would add, it is also designed to transform clerical blunders into patriotic triumphs. You see, the sin here is not only the cruelty, though cruelty there certainly is. The sin is the insult to intelligence. It is the pretense that this man was deported by accident, while we watch government lawyers argue in court with all the sincerity of a televangelist at tax time. It is the bald-faced gall of ignoring the judge's order to bring him back, then demanding our thanks for doing so late and under duress. This is the banality of bullshit. And it is bipartisan. Let us not pretend that any political party owns the patent on moral cowardice. The Democrats, when in power, did next to nothing to reform the system that made this fiasco possible. They weep now, but only when the cameras are rolling. They are, as ever, the party of too little, too late. They'd rather pass a resolution than pass a moral test. And the media, dear God, the media, bleating on both sides like sheep convince their wolves. One half parrots press releases, the other half sells fear for ad clicks. In a just country, someone would read them, the First Amendment and the Riot Act. No, if this country still claims to be governed by the rule of law, then someone ought to be held to account. Someone should lose a job. Someone should stand before a judge. Someone should be told, no, you may not treat human beings as bureaucratic inconvenience. Let me close with a warning, and it is not an idle one. Every time the government breaks its own law and gets away with it, it becomes a little easier to break the next one. Not just against the foreigner, not just against the poor, not just against the inconvenient, but against you. And when that day comes, when your name is misspelled on a list, when your paperwork is accidentally lost, when your fate is decided by a man with a grudge and a clipboard, I hope you'll remember that you said nothing now. Thank you.